and welcome. My name is Amanda Salazar. I'm the head of programming and acquisition at Argo, and I am so excited for today's conversation with the director and writer of Ghost Dogs, and animator, I should call that out as well, of Ghost Dogs, Joe Cappa. Joe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, thanks for having me, Amanda.
Well, let's jump right in. I always like to start at the beginning. So I really would like to know if you could tell us about kind of the idea of Ghost Dogs. Where did it come from? Where did this film start for you?
Okay, cool. I had made a lot of funny drawings of dog-like people crawling around just to make like my coworkers laugh and everything like that. And that was like about 10 years ago. And then I got a tablet that would allow me to draw straight onto the computer. And I had done some animation, some 2D animation, stop motion stuff, but I'd never done like cell animation, like frame by frame, you know, Disney style. So I wanted to teach myself how to do that. And so the first thing I thought to animate was one of those dog people walking across a room. And I was like, I can do this. This is cool. Let's make a whole movie. And then it was just a matter of, just sitting around thinking of ideas and storyboarding and re-storyboarding, and basically just kind of coming up with the entire movie as I was storyboarding, just thinking about like what would be the most interesting thing to happen in the next shot. And then once I had that finished, kind of going back and retooling it. And then what I discovered was I had like a horror comedy that's really about, the trope in a lot of horror movies where a dog is being haunted, or where a family's being haunted and they notice the dog or the pet notices something in the corner that the humans can't see.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's make the dog the main character, and then let's make other dogs that the dog sees. And I was like, that probably happens. I mean, it's got to happen. I believe in ghosts, but I would think that would happen. A dog would sense another dead dog. So that's the idea.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So, because there are some moments, and we're going to give maybe a little bit away, but not too much for anyone that hasn't seen the film. But it also, to your point, it's definitely like a dark comedy. Like we can get into the horror side of things, but there are some elements of it that I personally laugh out loud at. And I'm just kind of curious when you're talking about that process of kind of animating. Well, the story is coming as you're animating. When those scenes in particular, we don't necessarily have to say them exactly, but how those kind of came about, because that feels to me like obviously very much a part of the world that was created, but maybe we could even talk about kind of the commercial aspect that ends up happening, because I think that element of the dogs watching something else was, first of all, just it like gave depth to the film, and then also is really funny. So I just can you talk about that?
Yeah. So Ghost Dogs is like my first short film that I've made. I've helped like my friend make his features and stuff, but it's the first time I've really like sat down and created a whole story. And I don't know, it's funny when I listen to other like Q&As and people like have these like things they wanted to talk about, or like, and it's for me, it's like, I guess I've seen so many movies that it just feels right. Like I'm kind of getting in the audience's head as I'm storyboarding, and it's like I want to surprise them, but I want it to like I don't want to like alienate them, I want to like bring them along. So it's like it was just kind of a fun process to learn storytelling just as you go along. And like the commercial, like I came up with the commercial because the shot before that is like this like dog laying in a kitchen, and it's just like so tormented and it's so bored, and it's tearing a tennis ball with its mind because it's just like, this is eternity. And like it's really dark. And I was like, I gotta like switch it to something kind of comical. So then the commercial was on. And
they say a dog is a man's best friend. So doesn't your dog deserve the best?
And then it goes dark again. It's just kind of like
it goes back and forth. It is like very, very skilled in that ability to go back and forth. Because you're right, it's not just one genre or like one note, and that's what kind of travels you through it, which I love.
I think what brings it together is just the atmosphere, which was the main thing I wanted to do, is have a brightly lit house with raining outside. It was just like such a vibe that I wanted, throughout the whole film.
So with that, like, again, in worlds that you get to create, which this perhaps question sounds so broad, but like, talk about like, why that tone? Like, what is it about when you have the ability in animation to create the entire world yourself, you're clear, like, where are you pulling from? Where does that kind of inspiration come for you as these types of settings and moods that you're exploring within the film?
Yeah. So like, I wanted to kind of share my my dreams, my subconscious, because I just have, like, for as long as I can remember, I just have recurring dreams where I'm stuck in a haunted house, or a house that's like a maze that's familiar, but I don't know it. And and I just wanted to share that kind of emotion. And that's where like the whole vibe comes from. And yeah, I don't know. I think of this one moment. It's like in the second Star Wars, like one of the newer Star Wars. I guess it was a prequel. Attack of the Clones, and he goes to this alien planet that's like, it's like an ocean, and it's really stormy outside. He lands, it's all chaotic, and then he goes inside, and it's like a cloning facility, and it's just like very like peaceful and calm inside. And that, when I saw that scene, I was like, oh, that's it. That's like that's what I feel. So I kind of like referenced that as kind of like the emotion that I wanted to create with the whole setting. Yeah.
Love it. I mean, to your point, you basically, I love the fact, or just even knowing, and I hope anyone listening to this, you know, to your point, you just revealing that you also had dreams. Like, this is a film that has been a part of your subconscious for a long time, and then you finally get to create something with that, I think is really kind of remarkable.
Yeah, being able to do the psychedelic sequence was definitely like where I really got to like explore just like how crazy and weird being stuck in a house is.
Oh, so great. So going back to a little bit of the moment you talk about like storyboarding and the animation is a piece. I mean, there's also a writing credit, you and a co-writer. I'm curious about how you look to like what you consider writing within animation. Maybe that's like a very broad question, but that process for you, for anyone here that is also wants to be or is a self-taught animator or thinking about doing really any type of storying within a short. I'm curious about that process for you as well.
Yeah, I'm not a big cartoon watcher. I don't watch a lot of animation. And I like comedy. Like, that's what I love exploring. I'm very fascinated with like telling a good joke. And for my money, there's not a lot of stuff on TV that's animated that I think is like that funny. But
you kind of just answered it. All right.
Yeah, it's just like, so it was a big challenge for me because I couldn't reference a lot, but I was influenced by like Mike Judge stuff, like King of the Hill, Beavis and Butthead. And I think it has that kind of MTV liquid television vibe to the whole deal. So yeah, I mean, how do you write for that? I guess I learned how to write just like what I was saying, is just kind of storyboarding it through. I mean, I'm working on these new animations that's not like Ghost Dogs, but I think you can kind of get the weird sensibility that I have for animation. And it's just been a real exploration for me to figure out like style and story. And I think that's why I can't really get on board with a lot of cartoons, is because they all have that similar look to it. And I just feel like different stories require like a whole different style without being too weird and being too festival-y. Like I want to just attract any audience, you know? So it's just like thinking about how they look and then telling the story. So it's like creating the characters first, kind of looking at the face and like seeing how they would talk. And what kind of like speech impediment they might have or something like that, and kind of just building the story from just the appearance of it. And so that's how I've been working lately.
So then speaking of that, like kind of talking and mood, especially what you were just mentioning, what also really strikes me out about Ghost Dogs is obviously the lack obviously of dialogue. This is like a mood film and tone and atmosphere, as you had mentioned before. Can you talk about that process? Because I feel beyond the animation, which again, silent, is there something that you are pulling for beyond your dreams or certain films that, and when you kind of knew, when you put the sound to it, your sound design, you're like, that's it. Like kind of like take us through that process if you could.
Yeah. So like when I was brainstorming Ghost Dogs, I found a sound effect of like rain, and I muffled it so it sounded like it was coming from outside, and I looped it so it lasted like hours, and I'd like just listen to my headphones as I was like thinking and storyboarding, because I just like wanted to be in the scene.
Yeah.
And initially I just wanted it to be no music and it just be like you just hear rain the entire time. And then I just kind of learned that it needed to have like a lot of music, and it needed to have like the accents and the beats, and yeah, very kind of Looney Tunes, I don't know. But it needed to have music throughout pretty much the entire thing. And so I think it was like when the music came in, that's when I really knew I had a story. Again, this is my first animation I've made, like my first like short story. So typically you're supposed to make an animatic, which is like a storyboard, but it's like animated out. So you can get the pacing and timing and like know if your story makes sense. And I just didn't do that because I was like, that's just too much work. Now I totally would have done that. Because up until the very end, I mean, up until I put in the music, I didn't know if the movie made sense or what I had. So like, yeah, the music, and then, you know, when I do these festivals, everyone's just like so interested in the music, and I think music is everything in any film, and I think it just like really brought the whole thing together.
But I would also say beyond the music, which I absolutely agree, and I could see definitely why, again, because you're creating a whole world and you're giving us a sense of place, which is very much felt in Ghost Dogs. What I also loved is quite frankly, like obviously some of the sound effects, and I'll use kind of the shark, the vacuum cleaner, like as one of those, like these very familiar things that are humorous for kind of, because it brings you into a place of, I know that, like, even though this world is unfamiliar, but I know that sound. And so I don't really have a question there beyond it's very layered, which I really appreciated. And I'm curious again, if you kind of thought about that kind of in the beginning, or that it just to that point came together. It sounds like at the very end.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that the Roomba was going to be like a villain
to the dog. Thank you. I was like, what is that? What is that contraption?
There's so many. I think there's Roombas, and then there's all sorts of stuff. I don't have a Roomba. I've got something else. I can't even think of the name of it. You have a shark?
No, I probably am saying that because of that video where the cat is dressed like a shark on the like, you know, like popular. I know that video. Okay. Yeah. So my mind was like, that's what it's called. But anyway, yes, I don't have one clearly. So
yeah, I think I knew the Roomba like bouncing off walls and making a thud. I thought that would be kind of neat. The fact that the dog would be most scared of a Roomba than the other dogs. You know, that's like the kind of the whole joke. I'm kind of going off on my own thing now, but that was like a big joke that I wanted to have in the entire movie, was that the dog is afraid of something and not afraid of the thing that it probably should be afraid of.
Exactly. I know, which plays off so nicely. I mean, I will say, again, I don't want to give too much away, but like the film has a pretty dark undertone, like we ultimately kind of is revealed. And I am kind of curious, or beyond, you know, these characters that you're creating, maybe like, again, why dogs was maybe how I want to say it. Like, why the dog as the animal to kind of play with some of these dark undertones, the sinisterness of the things we keep in our basement, so to speak.
Yeah. Again, I mean, it goes back to like the horror trope and just trying to reinvent a horror movie. Because I don't know why. It's like, I love sci-fi and I love horror, but it's like all terrible. I mean, there's just like a very small fraction. And when it's like good, it's like really, really good.
Yeah.
And there's so much terrible like horror movies and sci-fi out there. So whenever I watch like a really bad horror movie that I wanted to be good, I get inspired, you know. It's like I get inspired by stuff that just lets me down. Just like underwhelms me. I'm like, I could do that. I could do better. They should have done this. They should have done it that way. And I mean, that, I don't know if that answers your question, but I own a dog. I don't know. Dogs are cool.
That's great. That's all of that is a great answer to what I was asking. So I guess kind of, wrapping this up a little bit, we can kind of keep going on this, like kind of your first animated short, which already is remarkable, if I might say. How long did the film take you to make? From, I know there's the idea, but maybe what I'm saying is like when you actually started going like, I'm going to make this short film, what was that process like?
Took me 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I could get it done in 6 months because I didn't know what I was doing. And then it just kept stretching out. And then I would have to take on other gigs. So I didn't go broke. So it was just kind of finding moments to continue working on it. That animation sequence, though, at some point, the whole movie is 12 frames per second. And then at one point, it wraps up to 24 frames. So it's like very hyper. And I would like ruin my shoulder doing that because I would have to like draw the scene over and over. And I guess this repetitive motion, give a frozen shoulder where I couldn't lift my hand. Like I couldn't lift.
No.
It was like that for about 4 months. So I had to go on hiatus for that.
We should put like a warning label on animation.
I know, man, I tell you. And then I would talk to anybody else and be like, oh yeah, I've got this frozen shoulder. And it's like, so many of my friends were like, oh, I had that one time. But I guess like you get it if you're like a painter or something and you're just like using this motion a lot, or if you're just repeating a motion over and over again. So anyway, so there was just like a lot of obstacles in the way. And then, with COVID and quarantine, it really allowed me to just like sit at home and focus on the damn thing and get it finished. So that helped.
Absolutely. So to wrap this up, we, Argo being a platform for short films, and also this being kind of your first, I am kind of curious when we say the word short film, my question to you is, what does short film mean to you?
Yeah. I think the cool thing about shorts versus features is that to me, a really fascinating short is like a world building experience. It's like a test universe. It's like just a thought experiment. It's like, what if, the rules of the world work this way? And, it could be like set in like very much the reality we know, but like the characters are very interesting and how would they interact? And I think it's just like, I think that's like when short films really shine, when they have their own style, you can see the art, the director's touch. And then, just being able to tell a really succinct, tight story. Yeah. I mean, I think those are like the merits of a good one for me, but that's why I love short animation and short films.
Yeah. Well, and also why we loved yours. I think to your point that world was created. We definitely get a sense of not only like your style, but sense of humor. And definitely, like I said, for me, I was really struck by the sense of place I had with your film, which is a totally other world. And yet it was like feels familiar at the same time. So I know. Success. Thank you so much, Joe, for this conversation. And anyone here listening, you can watch Ghost Dogs on Argo. And we hope that you enjoy. Thanks again, Joe, for chatting.
Thank you.
Bye.